Get your stinking rat out. It's late night large.
Welcome to the show, having a nap in the freezers at Aldi, late night large. Leaving the store suitably refreshed is me, Aaron Bliss, while taken aside by security for attempting to waddle out with a tub of Haagen-Dazs down his kecks is Mike Large.
Yep. Yep.
This is the new reality though, isn't it, Mike? Trying to sneak a nap in the freezer, sticking ice cream down your pants.
It is. I mean, look at me. Sweat dripping off me. Ridiculously hot.
You might not be able to tell, but Mike is sweating profusely. I'm wearing a bandana soaked in cold water, and I also have my feet paddling around in a little plastic tub of cold water as well, which I would recommend. It really does regulate your body temperature and makes you far more comfortable, which is good because the fan isn't doing much other than blowing the mild furnace air around. Welcome to climate change. So,
climate change? That's not real.
Yeah, that's the problem. There's a lot of people like that. So we're it's lockdown large. We're in the midst of summer. So obviously we expected a few hot temperatures, and this heat wave is going to last a few more days yet. Like I say, you know, just we need to do everything we can to just try and stay calm, because panicking's not gonna, or getting angry is not gonna make it any more tolerable. Let's just go for a few lockdown large tips to cope with the heat in this current climate. Obviously, not all of these are available to everyone, so I'll try and come up with a few off the top of my head. Number one, try sleeping in a tent in the back garden. It's going to be cooler than the house, probably. Number two, which I suggested to Mike, fill a hot water bottle with cold water, put it in the freezer for a couple of hours, and then sleep with that on your feet. That will be surprisingly effective.
You also suggested if I send you dick pics, that would cool me down somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, let's not talk about that right now, Mike.
He told me that'd work. So feel free, guys.
And I'm just going to reiterate that does work. So anyone who's been pinged by me, you know what to do. So just accept what I'm sending. Yeah, ping, that reminds me. So before we start tonight, guys, we've been keeping you entertained all lockdown. We've been giving you these useful tips on how to stay cool, how to avoid dickheads, how to rail against the government, who to trust, etc., etc. If you enjoy or savor or feel that there's any value in this at all, why have you not already subscribed and click the little bell? Because we do this stuff regularly, you know. We could be doing other stuff, but we're happy to give to the masses. And why not suggest us to a friend? Probably someone over the age of 18, considering some of the stuff we cover, but why not?
Why not suggest me to a particularly attractive female friend?
Or maybe
the over 18 thing on that is take it away.
Blurred boundaries. I would suggest that maybe a better person to share Mike's personal details with would be particularly hulking male prisoner, perhaps doing 20 to life. But I digress.
Oh, yeah.
So, believe it or not, there's been explosion of things that have happened just in the few days since we last did lockdown large. When we, at the time of recording this, obviously it won't be the day it goes out, but at the time of recording, it is the long heralded, the day that Boris Johnson was hoping to metaphorically have a wank in front of the public and them all to applaud him for it. Freedom Day, which he was so desperate to have plastered all across the tabloids with a big picture of his grinning fucking face saying, "Oh, Boris has got us through all of it. It was so difficult, but look at us now. Climate change doesn't exist. We are just in an amazing place, and there's going to be fun, happiness, and parades for all time." Unfortunately, as we've already discussed, by the way, we could have been doing this, but that fat mess has decided to let the Johnson variant into the country from India when he was warned about it, but no, he wanted to be Billy Big Bollocks and get the trade deal. So here we are.
Did you just call it the Johnson variant?
I'm afraid so. I think that just needs to be it. To be fair, it's the only thing. It's the only thing that seems to get through to him. I think it does seem to rile him a little bit. So yeah, I think we're going to keep calling it that. So it's Freedom Day, or as some people have christened it, Freedom Day, DUMB. Because you have to be really fucking dumb if you literally are going out without a mask and not keeping your distance from people. Listen to experts, people. The government are not experts.
What are you on about? The pandemic's over now?
Yeah, about that, apparently nobody told the pandemic.
What?
So, yeah, I know, right? I mean, this is always the thing with Boris, is he makes these big plans and he forgets to notify important people. So he's forgot to notify the COVID-19 protein spikes, whatever, and unfortunately they decided that they want to keep partying. So here we are. Mike, other than Freedom Day being described, as we've talked about in previous Late Night Larges, being described as anywhere between lunacy, irresponsible, reckless, and a threat to the world, because of the increased likelihood of creating a vaccine-resistant variant. By the way, if all of those people are still cheerleading for the clown, if we get a vaccine-resistant variant, it's game over. We're back in lockdown. This could be with us for another 3 or 4 years. And it's your hero that caused this. He was warned that this would increase the chances of it. Anyway, I digress. Mike, the big news, other than Freedom Day, which actually isn't very big news other than people being very worried about it, the big news was just after celebrating how great Freedom Day was going to be, the new health secretary over the weekend tested positive for COVID. I mean, I don't know how inept you have to be. How long had he been in the post? Like a week or something? And he's already managed to contract the virus that he is supposed to be in charge of keeping at bay. Fortunately for him, being a very important and very wealthy, well-connected person, and to be fair, he is of an older generation, he has been double vaccinated. But if this proves anything, it's for those people who think, oh, well, why do I have to be worried if I'm double vaccinated? If COVID's a real thing and I've been vaccinated? Because you can still catch it and transmit it to other people. If you fucking listen to people who knew what they were talking about, the vaccines do not stop you from contracting COVID. They remove most of the risk of being hospitalized or having serious complications.
Well,
that's what they do.
This is the problem, isn't it? There are far too many people, and I know I've said it before, and you know I'll say it again.
Oh, he grows.
Broken record or not, the problem is there are far too many people who are just dumb. They're just dumb, right? And they just come out with kind of the type of people that come out with the responses, like, oh, but Boris said that it's okay now. Did he? Boris Johnson said it's okay now. Fuck it. Pandemic over. It's finished then. Brilliant. Well done. Boris said it's okay. No, you fucking mung bean, right? Take your tongue off that window for 2 minutes and listen to someone with a brain. Unbelievable. Just fucking hell.
You might call it the Dunning-Kruger variant, what we're talking about. Yeah, people. We discussed this before. People whose level of intellect is so low that they actually do not have the mental capacity to understand how little intellect they have. So I think a lot of people that you're talking about would fall into that particular category.
Well, yeah, and this is it. And people are so desperate as well, aren't they? Just to all the time, just desperate to stick two fingers up at authority, or you know, fuck it, you can't tell me what to do, and I can, you know, you may take our lives, but you'll never take our freedom, fucking plebs. Like, you just.
It's like this freedom to act like.
But I'm not suggesting mindless obedience. I'm not endorsing that. But just they're the type of people that will stick their fingers up to some professionals, some experts that know exactly what they're talking about because somebody else said it's all right. Oh, Boris said it's all right, so it doesn't matter that anyone that knows what they're talking about said, you might want to be careful. Because Boris is... But give it a couple of months and Boris will say something they don't like, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter what Boris says.
Yeah, no,
Just
you're very true.
absolute fucking
There's no consistency.
morons. Just morons that look for any excuse just to do what they want.
But yeah, about the only consistency I can find is, it's their freedom begins and ends with their ability to act like obnoxious pricks. That just seems to be it. It's like, you know, I want the freedom to mouth breathe around everyone, even if I don't know them, because I need to do that. Or I want the freedom to racially abuse people in public, or I want the freedom to get half fucking cut at the football and break into the stadium. It's just this really obnoxious individualism, which, you know, as we probably alluded to before, this has been where Thatcherism has brought us. I'm not saying these people wouldn't be like that anyway, but it's encouraged them. It's made them think they're in the majority. It made them think that not only do they have the right to be obnoxious, but actually that kind of makes them British. That's what being British is, sticking two fingers up to everyone.
All I say on that is, unfortunately, they in the majority.
You think so?
Yeah. Maybe.
Are you making the
maybe
mistake?
My particular. Huh?
I think you're making the mistake, Mike, though, in thinking because they are gobbier and they're in your face and they don't shut up. You know, what is it? I'm sure there's a phrase for it, but just because they're a lot louder than everyone else doesn't necessarily mean they're in the majority.
No, I know what you mean. Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe they're not, but just in my experience, it feels like it.
To be fair,
maybe that's what it is. It feels like they're the majority.
I know what you mean.
You know, and well,
to anyone
someone more optimistic would say no, they're absolutely not. But we know that we know my feelings on the general populace.
Well, to anyone who's watching this, who's thinking, oh, why is Mike so kind of got this downer on people in general? He works in retail, so you know, I used to be there. Funnily enough, I became a much more rounded, pleasant, welcoming person since I quit retail. So that's the effect it has on you. And by the way, that's not like, oh, you work in retail and it's a shit job. That's because when you work in retail, the people you come across treat you a certain way. And that does give you a very negative impression of people, because I'm going to go out there and say that probably 75% of the people you deal with in retail, when they talk to you, they think it gives them license to talk to you as someone who is deserving of less respect than the average human they would speak to. And that's where the resentment comes from. Not just overtly outrageous behaviour, but just the general sneering way that they'll ask questions or they'll make little snide comments. You know, like I said, I've had a gutful of it. They do, and by the way, my brothers and sisters who work in retail, you have my full solidarity. I've been there. People do treat you as a lower form of life, unfortunately. So I get where you're coming from.
I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's just customers, but
very true. Yeah, and
there we go.
I'm sure hospitality is quite similar as well. So yeah, the biggest news is so Sajid Javid, like I say, hardly got his feet under the table as health secretary. trying to come across as really fucking smart. Oh yeah, I'm a smart health secretary. We don't need masks. Yeah, we're gonna get used to it like the flu. Hardly any time passes. He's got COVID. Apparently, he's still got mild symptoms. Even with double vaccination, it still gives you mild symptoms, apparently. So there you go, people. He has been struck with COVID. This means he has to obviously self-isolate. 2 people who were known to be in close contact with him, in fact, many people that were known to be in close contact with him, but 2 of them particularly were the Prime Minister, the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Now, the furore that erupted over the weekend, and Mike, does this strike you as an example of, you know, we talked about this before where we said it's almost got to Louis the 14th kind of levels of contempt for the public, where they literally do not give a single fuck what we think of them doing whatever the hell they like. It seemed to be the case, exactly the case again. Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak had been in close quarters with Sajid Javid. Therefore, the app pinged them, the famous NHS app, which we'll come on to later, and said, you must self-isolate for 10 days, as per the instruction we give to anyone. And then there was a statement from presumably Johnson and Sunak's office saying, get this, first of all, they weren't going to self-isolate, but the reason they weren't going to self-isolate, you know, they were careful not to say, oh, it's because we're too important and we've got too much work to do. What they said was they'd been randomly selected for a pilot scheme that allowed people in crucial industries to continue working rather than self-isolating, providing they got tested every day. Now, if that sounds made up, it's because it almost invariably was. And wouldn't you just guess it? Another person who was randomly selected was Michael Gove, who had just got back from, I think, watching the football. So all these important like lads in the cabinet who love each other's company apparently were all randomly selected from anyone in the population or anyone in the important population. Those people got selected to take part in this pilot scheme. Well, I'm glad to say that I think it was pretty clear that they were notified by whoever their advisors, whatever, that this was going to be another Barnard cast if they weren't careful. And I think within 12 hours, they changed their minds and said, Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak are now self-isolating as requested. I don't know about Michael Gove, presumably he is as well. But Mike, what does it say again about the levels of contempt that Johnson just thought, fuck it, I don't want to self-isolate, and thought he could just cook up another one of his ridiculous lies and we would swallow it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You're right. I don't know what else or needs to happen or how much more proof, if you can call it that in a kind of loose way, I suppose, people need to be convinced of this. You know, these people give about as much of a fuck about you or me as it is convenient for them to give, and no more. They don't care what you think. Even when they're trying to win votes from you, they don't care what you think. They care about manipulating what you think, not what you actually think or how you actually feel or what you actually do. Or they don't care. And I'm not saying they're all evil people who don't care about other people at all. But what I would say to you, most of you, because there are people that aren't like, lots of people that aren't like this, unfortunately, which is not governed by them. You know, you could probably name more people that don't really give a shit about a random family in another part of the country they don't know than that do. You know, sadly, if you go down your street and I mean, not suggesting you do this right now, but if you were to go down your street and knock on everyone's door, have a conversation, or even actually straight up ask some of them, your neighbours, there's a country, so someone up in the other part of another part of the country, there's a family here, and do you give a fuck about them? No, they don't. And these people don't give a fuck about you either.
Yeah. That's true. No, I see what you're saying. I mean, just to give you another example of that, what was it? I think this last week, Boris Johnson did his big levelling up speech. Now, you might remember that was one of the cornerstones of his manifesto pledges that he ran on in 2019. So amongst the major things that he promised was get Brexit done, which we can see now is a lie, because he now is trying to repudiate the treaty he actually signed. So that was a lie. He had a plan for social care. 2 years down the line, he's not presented a single idea about how that's going to be solved. And the big levelling up speech, which, people defending him were like, you don't give Boris a chance. He's been dealing with so much. You need to just listen to him in his element now. And he made this levelling up speech, and he didn't say anything. He said nothing of any substance that was going to happen. It was the usual waffle and bullshit. What he wants to happen, what he doesn't like, what he doesn't agree with, what he wants to see. As if, as if he's just doing after dinner speeches. He doesn't seem to realise he's the fucking Prime Minister. The Prime Minister doesn't talk about how great he wants the country to be. He fucking makes laws and puts into place projects to turn it into the country that he says he wants it to be. So if you needed any more, evidence that he's completely full of hot air, and he conned all of you who voted for him, because everything he pledged is just been hot air. Tell me one thing he's pledged in 2019 that has actually been not either complete lie or a partial lie. And this isn't to say like, oh, you're wrong for voting a certain way. It's to say, work out if you're being conned. If you've been conned, admit it and say, I'm not trusting that cunt again, or I'm not trusting those cunts again. This is how we get into a bad situation, when people won't admit they've been conned. Anyway, so Johnson is now self-isolating, having been shamed into doing so. Here we go. We've got the major ministers of the government having to self-isolate, and yet apparently we don't need masks or social distancing anymore. Cases are through the roof. Hospitalizations are going up worryingly. Deaths are still low, but it's like somebody said the other day, we're still getting an average of like 80 deaths a day now. And it's all very well saying, oh, well, that's nothing compared to the population. That's still like nearly 100 families a week, a day, is it a day? I think a day, who are missing someone that otherwise could be alive. So I don't know. I've noticed, Mike, that there's a group of people, and they're not among the stupidest, like you were describing, the obnoxious window vickers, but they're kind of they're in this group that they don't want to admit that they don't really understand what's going on. They're not stupid people. They're relatively smart, but they don't really understand what's going on, either because they don't want to, or they haven't looked into it properly. And their attitude is, anyone who's worried about Freedom Day says it's stupid. Oh, you just want us to be locked down forever. Do you know what I mean? Have you heard this? Oh, do you want to be controlled the rest of your life? It's like, listen to your fucking self. Medical experts are explaining why, even if we allow nightclubs to open, which again I don't think is clever, but even if we were to allow nightclubs to open and festivals to open, which is in my interest, and they are outdoors, even if we allow that, which I wouldn't necessarily horribly disagree with, there is no justification to ending the use of masks and social distancing. It's really fucking stupid. Everyone knows it is. The only people who support it are the batshit crazy far-right Tories in the backbenches. So,
yeah.
And it's just quite childish, if you say you're worried about something, it's like, do you know the other thing that really gets my goat, Mike, is some of these people that they take it really personally when you say, yeah, I think it's a silly idea for us to just remove everything now. And they go, yeah, well, you can't be scared all your life, can you? And it's like, oh, so you're big and brave now. Is that the reason? So we're cowardly and you're big and brave, and that's why you support this. It's like,
I don't know. I think there's yeah.
Maybe I'm taking cheap shots, but what I mean is
maybe I do think that, you know, I think we've said before, I do think you have to draw a line in the sand somewhere.
I think we both agreed with that, though.
It's just that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea to ignore some of the smartest people in the country who are the experts when they say doing this might not be a good idea, or this might still be necessary, or perhaps we shouldn't do this. Just because Boris is ignoring them doesn't mean that you have to. But some of them know that, but they use the fact that Boris does as an excuse.
No, you're very...
Oh, well, they don't do whatever, or they don't care, so I don't have to either. Grow up.
No,
Grow up. It's what it is as well. It's like the naughty school kids that just don't want to be told what to do. It's cool not to give a fuck. Yeah, it's really cool to not do as I'm told, and to, yeah, do you know what? I don't like this rule, so I'm not going to follow it. Or I think this is stupid, so you can't make me do it. Honestly, you sound like fucking children.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
What makes me laugh is if you asked most of these people, oh, so you're going to be out on the street protesting against the bill that criminalises peaceful protest, then?
No, because they don't give a fuck.
What's that? Oh, never heard of that. So yeah, well, that's the thing, you know, you're accusing us for being subservient to the government. You're the one who fucking doesn't have a clue what's going on. Anyway, Mike, so we've had the NHS app that pings people when they are suspected to have been in close contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID, okay? Now, this has apparently been overly sensitive. There's an estimate that there could be 1 million people isolating relatively soon. Now, because of Brexit, which obviously the media will never cover, but because of Brexit, we already have massive labour shortages. And now the labour shortages are literally causing empty shelves, companies having to close for the afternoon and stuff because of the amount of staff that are self-isolating because of this ping app, right? So what I'm going to do, Mike, is I'm going to say, so that first, and then let me explain further, and then I'll get your reaction. So I watched a video, right, of this guy who was demonstrating how flawed the test and trace thing is. So I'm going to a festival middle of August, and I think like every other major event, you have to declare that you are COVID-free within 48 hours. Like, say you've had you need to have a negative COVID test within 48 hours, right? Now, that sounds fair enough, but do you know how that works? How you demonstrate you've had a negative COVID test? This guy was showing how to do it. So he got tickets for Wembley for the Euro 2020 final, and he said, "Oh, part of me being allowed in is I have to declare that I'm COVID-free within 48 hours." So he gets out his lateral flow kit. I've got one at home. He got out his lateral flow kit and he says, so what they do is they ask you to key in the little code that's printed on the test. So you key that into the government website. And then they ask you, was the test positive or negative? Yeah, you see the problem. So bear in mind, we've spent, I presume this is part of it, we've spent £37 billion of taxpayers' money on this fiasco of a system, and the best they can do is, I will give you tests, and you just have to be honest Injun about whether you don't even have to take the fucking test. You could literally get a free pack of test kits, copy the code and say, oh yeah, I took it, I was negative. Who the fuck is going to take a test, say they were positive when they know that they're not going to be able to go to the football? Like, I'm just like, when we were spending that amount of money on it, I thought, oh, well, okay, well, at least it's probably going to be foolproof, isn't it? No, it's literally just going to be, have you taken a test? Yes. Was it positive or negative? Negative. Oh, okay, cool. In you go. It's honestly inexplicable. So, and of course, along with that, the other thing that has happened, which by the way I approve of, I'm not actually anti this at all, because I think the government's taking the piss so much. Why shouldn't the population? To get people pinged, you just have to declare you tested positive with no evidence. You get 10 days off, paid off work, and all the people around you get 10 days paid off work.
Can we not advertise that, please? It's all right for you, but I actually have to deal with the backlash of these people.
We'd like the last remark stricken from the record. Anyway, for Mike's sake, please. What I'm trying to say to you, Mike, is this is a recipe for disaster, isn't it? I mean, don't get me wrong. We've had one end of the scale, which is we had COVID outbreaks because we didn't pay people enough to self-isolate. Now we seem to have veered right to the other end of the scale, and people get paid to self-isolate just if they say, oh, yeah, I've tested positive. Yeah. How have we spent this amount of money and we just have a system that just relies on people's honesty? It's just crazy.
I don't have an answer for that.
It's fucking crazy. Oh, and it just again gives the impression that Boris Johnson and his cabinet don't have the first Scooby-Doo what the hell they're doing with anything. I think me or you could have come up with something on the hoof made out of like tinfoil or something that would have been more effective than this stupid system. So there we go. We could potentially have 1 million people self-isolating over the next few weeks out of the labour force. Apparently, a lot of the tens of thousands of people that have been self-isolating at the moment, most of them apparently are school kids. But you say that and say, oh, it's not so bad, school kids, they're not going to be sick too long. But then obviously they're missing their education. And also that's potentially another parent out of the workforce who has to look after their kids. So it's just one catastrophe after another, really. Any thoughts on that, Mike? Or
well,
have I said enough?
I mean, I think you know my thoughts on it. I think everyone knows my thoughts on it. You know, I don't think there's anything else, to be fair, left to say about the whole thing, because if you've never listened to a Lockdown Large before, or if you really have no idea what's been going on at all, and you don't know by now that the whole thing is, I was going to call it a joke, but it's beyond the joke, then to be fair, there's probably no hope for you. So, yeah.
Yeah, fair play, Mike. Couple of stories that have very recently developed at the time of recording. Obviously, people probably have heard of them by the time we've gone out. First of all, very funny, scientists have cast doubt on Boris Johnson's story about this pilot. So we got the experts basically implying that Boris Johnson was bullshitting, which we already knew, but it's funny to see experts suggest that as well. So Boris Johnson lies, you know, sun rises, bear shit in the woods, etc. And finally, another big story that's just come in, Mike. is that COVID vaccine passports will now be required, apparently compulsory, for crowded venues. So that definitely means nightclubs. It definitely means strip clubs.
I was going to say, is there a list of what constitutes a crowded venue?
Well, this is the thing, because I'm thinking surely pubs will have to be included. But let me just have a quick look at the article, see if it goes into any more detail. Part of the reason why they're having COVID vaccine passports is, number one, they probably realize what a fucking stupid idea it is to reopen nightclubs this early. Oh, here we go. Right. Okay. So more moronic. Oh, for fuck's sake. Sorry, Mike. I'm just reading this. So the first paragraph says vaccine passports will be compulsory to enter packed venues such as nightclubs in an extraordinary U-turn by Boris Johnson hours after clubs were allowed to open for the first time in 16 months. Hang on. This will apply by the end of September.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I mean, it beggars belief, doesn't it? So
what is the fucking point?
I don't know. By that time, the damage will be done. I don't know what the fuck he's thinking, but well, I know what he's fucking.
I mean, forget. Go on.
No, I know what he's thinking. What he's thinking is obviously he's trying to upset the least amount of people he can by saying, yeah, young people can go to nightclubs, but then saying to people who are worried, oh, but we need to have vaccine passports, and then to young people who'd be really upset about that, oh, but we'll do it in September when they've all had a chance to be offered to vaccines. And then he's probably thinking about, oh, I hope my backbenchers don't get angry. It's just a fucking farce, isn't it, really?
Well, I mean, forget about the fact that the whole thing's fucking ridiculous anyway. I mean, yeah, okay. So if you've had 2 jabs and yeah, we can talk about a third and a booster. Forget that. But okay, you've had 2 jabs. You are significantly less likely to get seriously ill, if at all. Brilliant, fantastic. If you do get it, and it's less likely that you'll get it, but you can still get it, which means you can still pass it on. So what's the fucking point anyway? You know what I mean? You get one person who's had 2 jabs, go to a nightclub, give it to every other cunt in there, regardless of how many jabs they've had. They've all had 2 jabs. They can still get it, pass it to each other, and they can still fuck off and spread it. What difference does it make anyway? It's fucking dumb. But
well, do you remember
why end of September? I get it. If I maybe if I was 18, say I just turned 18, and I felt like I had some sort of right to go out clubbing and stuff, and I haven't experienced clubbing yet, and I turned 18 5 months ago, and I haven't had a chance to go. Yeah, I guess it's kind of a rite of passage or whatever. You're 18 now. Not that most people these days actually pay the slightest bit of attention, or I say these days, if they ever really. But yeah. Anyway, okay, I can legally go and do this now. I can actually show my own ID that isn't fake. You know, or whatever. Or I'm a girl. I don't have to worry about getting my tits tucked to the bouncers anymore. I can just dress like a non-whore and get in. But I don't know. But I guess how they might be a bit like, well, that's not what. So all these fucking old people who have had their jabs can do what the fuck they like. It's not our fault we were bottom of the priority list.
Yeah,
I understand why we were, but it's not why we've been penalised. So I understand that, and I understand why maybe, I get it. But if you're gonna fucking bring something like that in, that's dumb anyway, what was the point of doing it then?
Yeah, no,
I just.
Do you know what?
It's just more bullshit to, like you say, just to try and placate people who can't critically analyze what he's actually saying himself. Oh, look, he's doing a thing. He's doing a thing, guys. He said a thing, and he's doing a thing, and it's good. It's good for us because he said it's good for us, and he did a thing. So yeah, brilliant. He's always thinking about what's best for us. That is brilliant. He's done a thing, and he said something, and now people are going to have to do some stuff at some point. Brilliant. Love it. Fuck off.
Couldn't have put it better, Mike. It does also say in the article that the medical professionals pushed for this partially because apparently the vaccine take-up amongst people under 30 is lower than the general population. And they believe it will encourage people, incentivize young people to get their vaccinations. It does beg the question, doesn't it, though, Mike? Because as you said before, nightclubs have never been particularly known as places where everything is above board. If you're a, like you say, if you're a young, attractive woman who happens to be under the age of 18, there are other ways of getting in rather than showing ID, and getting drinks other than showing ID. Bit more difficult for guys, but if you don't cause any trouble, you can usually sneak in as well under the age of 18. So you're telling me that those clubs that have allowed 16, 17-year-olds in the past to drink and potentially do drugs, because we know that drugs happen at a lot of nightclubs and they're not supposed to. So you're telling me that those venues that allow underage people in, that allow the narcotics to be consumed on their premises, they are going to be hot on vaccine passports, are they? I'm just saying, even if we think it's still a good idea and Boris Johnson hasn't U-turned by September again, or even if he's still the fucking Prime Minister, do we think that nightclubs are genuinely going to be implementing this properly?
As much as it pleases them to.
Yeah. No, I think the same. Yeah. It's another case of again passing on the blame and the work to other people, isn't it? Johnson can't be asked to keep it in check, so we'll let nightclubs do the stuff for us and other business.
We'll trust the integrity and honesty of nightclubs, and we'll trust that the bouncers that they put on the doors, and yeah, I'm not not slagging anyone off. No, I'm just saying
bouncers
we know full well. Huh?
Sorry, I know you're not slagging anyone off, and also I'm not saying all bouncers are like this, but it's not exactly a trustworthy profession.
No, we've all seen it 1,000 times. Whether it's recently, I don't think it's ever been any different. There may be people twice our age sat here thinking, yeah, that was the same. Flagrant disregard for any rules, as and when it suits. And I'm not saying the entirety of people, nightclub owners or bouncers on doors or anything like that. I'm not saying that all of them, all of the time. I'm not saying that at all. But come on, has anyone actually say, oh no, I've never seen an example of that? No, I've never seen. No, no, it doesn't happen. No, they don't. No, they don't make up whatever rules they fancy on whatever night they fancy, or to whoever they fancy, or disregard certain rules for certain people because I don't know, whatever. No, never. It's never happened. Nope. No. Come on, because it fucking has, and this will be no different.
Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree. It's recipe for disaster, but there you grow. Another fine mess that the Fatburger's gotten us into. And yeah, now he's self-isolating. It's a shame that he won't completely self-isolate and just not get in contact with any of us ever again. But I believe he's actually doing a press conference. I thought he was doing one this evening actually to explain, because going right back to where we started, part of the reason that Boris Johnson's made up bullshit about being part of a pilot test scheme to not self-isolate and just test every day instead, Part of the problem with that bullshit excuse is now, every other fucker who doesn't believe in self-isolating, thinks it's all too fussy and, oh, I don't have time to do that. They're just going to go, oh, if it's good enough for Johnson, I can do it as well. Because again, Johnson wants to be this man of the people, and he wants to have all this attention and adulation, but he doesn't want to be a role model. He just wants to do whatever the fuck he wants. And in the middle of a pandemic, you have to be a role model. You have to behave how you expect other people in the population to behave. But as we've said, common sense, has the country ever had common sense? At least since the Second World War. You can even go back to the Second World War. There are people who refused to turn their lights off during the Blitz. Look at the statistics now for people who let their dogs die in hot cars. And obviously the guy who stuck a flare up his ass. These are people exercising typical British common sense, are they? How many people in this country drive their cars into rivers and whatever because their sat-nav took them there? These are people who are following common sense. How many people packed out the beach and then got hospitalised with third-degree sunburns because they wanted to get a tan? That's common sense. That's the common sense of this country. So, yeah, it's going to be I'm sure it's going to be a disaster. Mike, one last question before we grow. Do you think we're shaping up for another lockdown come autumn winter with the state of the exponential growth? I know you normally absolutely 100% approve of exponential growth, but not in this.
Oh yeah. I think we're opening ourselves up to a potential buggering by the virus. Yeah. I do, and this doesn't sound like me, I do still have hope, actually, that this will be the end. For me, as far as I can tell, and I'm no expert, and I'm certainly not.
I think I'm the same. I don't think it's based on anything to do with our competency or common sense. It's just kind of fortune. I just think fortune will probably favour us. There won't be a vaccine-resistant variant. Fingers crossed. Touch wood.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, there is a good chance that this will be the end or the start of the end, and we will avoid, the potential absolute bumming that we could have otherwise had come autumn/winter. And yeah, we'll see. But I mean, it might still happen anyway. But then we are also not, we have opened the door a little bit, haven't we? And said, well, if you do want to, virus, hey, us, yeah, that's it. People in England with all the common sense. Yeah. So if you fancy it, you have got quite a while to develop, just a new variant. If you want, up to you. We'll leave it up to you. Whatever. I mean, we'll probably be cool, whatever. So don't worry about it. But get back to us. Get back to us when you can. Before the end of September, though, that'd be good. Anyway, got to go shove a carrot my ass. All right, cheers.
Brilliant, Mike. That was one of your finest monologues. And on that note, nothing much left to do except to remind you, do all that stuff, subscribe, click on the bell. Me and Mike are here practically every week. Anything to add before we go, Mike?
Nada.
Okay, so in that case, this has been Lockdown Large, wishing your next trip to the toilet be painless and gratifying.